Hello, my name is David Steffes, and I'm here to talk to you about my Southbow marketing internship this spring. So, table of contents. What are we going to get into? We're going to start with where I started. So, build a little bit of context with Liberation Day, all of the macro developments, the tariffs. Then we're going to talk about the ARB calc and some of the fundamentals work I did. Then we'll discuss the two sites I built, so the trading analytics site for my team as well as the WTI spreads trading site I built. Then we're going to talk about the UT trading competition I did. Then we'll talk briefly about some of the obstacles I had and the solutions I found. Then we're going to talk about room for growth and my future development. And then I'm going to thank my team. So, Liberation Day. So, it's important. I came to work for Southbow, the Canadian's liquid pipeline company, at the most interesting and volatile time possible. Southbow's largest asset, the Keystone Pipeline, lets shippers move crude from Hardisty, Alberta, down into Pad 2 or Pad 3, into Patoka where there are refineries, or into Pad 3 where there are the Gulf Coast refineries. Um, and so when Trump announced tariffs, and there was a lot of uncertainty in the market. We didn't know whether these tariffs applied to USMCA goods or not. We didn't know if it applied to energy or not. And sort of as it expanded, like remember we would get, oh, there are no tariffs on energy, but on April 2nd, we're going to determine again, we're going to relitigate it. This kind of stuff really was foundational to my understanding of how the business functions. And it was very interesting to see how we navigated that and help my team navigate that uncertainty. So ARB calc and fundamentals, trading crude oil is solving the ultimate logistics problem. Trying to find out what we're trying to do is try to find out what refineries want to buy, right? We want to see what spreads are going to do. We want to see what refiners are going to buy. So that all comes back eventually. It starts at the global economy. What refined products do people want to use? Then it goes into product demand. So what do the refiners then have to produce? And finally, it goes, okay, well, if we have to produce this slate, that means we need crews with this assays. That means we need to go buy XYZ crude. That means we as a trading group, we need to go find a way to profitably get them the crude that they desire. So that's sort of what we do at Southbow Marketing is we ship crude down the Keystone and try to get it to the refineries that need it. Another thing that I did, and this was very important to my group, was the ARB calc. So my team had built out this ARB calc, and then I refined it and built upon it. And this allows us to see the ARBs to Europe and to Asia. And what this allows us to see is the demand or lack of demand for export barrels, which is very important for us in terms of because we start with a large net short spreads position just naturally because of the time it takes to get crude from Hardisty down into the Gulf Coast. So we start with a net short spreads position. So understanding sort of how spreads will be priced based on like export and other demand factors is important to us. So every day we would look at this ARB calc together, and then people would go and trade on it and use it as actionable data. So now we'll get into my first site. So the trading analytics site. So I'm just going to show you two things on this site, but effectively this site pulls in a bunch of data from ICE, from Fred, from Argus, and from other sources. At one point also Kepler, but no longer. But I'm going to just show you two things. So multi-series analysis allows us to see charts of any particular variable, but we'll look at anomalies because we just have a limited amount of time. So we'll look at well, I'll do two things. So first, we'll look at uh, Cushing stocks. So one thing I want to point your attention to is at the top, the following variables had z-score anomalies of greater than 2 standard deviations in the last 7 days. And so this is something that immediately notifies my team if one variable or one factor is outside of its relative range. Additionally, we can change the z-score threshold. So let's change it to 2. And now we can see There are far more z-scores. We can also see this table, which shows us the different time periods where it went outside of this, where it was two z-scores outside of its standard deviation. Additionally, we can do isolation forest, which I think is very cool. We can change our contamination to 0, and we can see the absolute most volatile time period for um, Cushing crude oil. Then I'll also show you, we're going to skip over correlation dashboard and nearest neighbors. I'll show you guys some of that stuff in the WTI spread site, but I'm going to show you the Huber regression. So I did variational mode decomposition alongside a Huber regression model in order to backtest and forecast two variables, WCS Houston as well as WTI crude. So I just ran the backtest so you can see our mean average error. You can also see the 95% projection band, the actual and the predicted, so how it follows. And then you can run the forecast, although it does take some time, so we're going to skip that today, but we can get into sort of the mathematics of how that functions. So I actually read this paper from the Texas A&M University Library, which discussed, I was just searching for a way to sort of predict crude oil prices, and I came across this paper, and it took a bunch of different mode decompositions, it took a bunch of different statistical models and machine learning models, and it found that VMD plus the Huber regression was the best for modeling crude oil prices. So I was like, okay, I'll use that. Additionally, I decided to use um, VMD plus LSTM, which is like a recurrent neural network, but specifically for time series data. Um, so I used that at one point, but it was not nearly as good as the Uber regression model, so I dropped it. Now let's look at the WTI spread site, which is my favorite thing that I built. And I'll actually show you this slide. So this is one thing that my boss wanted to see, which was effectively the Bloomberg terminal. This is a Bloomberg terminal data, and I'll show you how I built something similar in here. So we start with, we're actually going to upload the file. So we upload the file, and then we get our prompt, our dthread, Cushing stocks, what our data is through. Then we can go to our alerts page, which tells us, oh, look, dthread has an alert of a z-score minus 4.46, so that's something to examine. Then we look at our overview, which is just graphing of literally whatever you want. So you can graph any outright, all these Decembers, you can graph any spread. So you can do dthread, blue, green, red, blue, whatever you would like. Then we'll look at curves, which shows you your curve for the day. And you can do it for any day. So you want to see like what did the curve look like this day? What did the curve look like this day? What did the curve look like today? And effectively green segments show backwardation, red show contango. So you can see that smile within our current curve. Then we have our spread summary and analysis. I think the most interesting one to look at is D-spread right now. But you can do whatever near leg and whatever far leg you want. But D-spread is very interesting because look at that, 0.5% percentile. If you look at the distribution, wow, it's very far down in the distribution. This actually came into play when I decided to take on my own personal position in the Robinhood Micros contracts. So at one point I wanted to purchase the prompt and sell D-Red because I believed that, okay, if I purchase the prompt and sell D-Red, I had noticed that because of the Samuelson hypothesis, you see, well, not because of, but in line with the Samuelson hypothesis, you see that the prompt moves the most and everything but behind it moves less. So the prompt spread was moving the most, certainly in terms of upward on up days, but on down days, what was very interesting was actually D-Red was moving down the most. So I wanted to sell D-Red and purchase um, the prompt spread. But unfortunately, Robinhood doesn't allow you to go out into 2026, December 2026 for contracts. So instead, I purchased the prompt and sold December 2025. I purchased CL1, sold CL Z25, and then um, I ended up getting stopped out of my position. Um, but it was definitely something interesting to try. historical analog. So this is also a nearest neighbors finder. I have another one on the other page, but effectively what this shows us is based on all of the data as well as momentum indicators, some feature engineering, what is today most similar to, and then how did it act over the next few days. So one thing that I like to do is I actually don't like the prompt because it's not as indicative. I'd rather look at, I think we looked at dthread, and we'll make the neighbor 7 to give a better understanding. And this is very interesting. So this, what does this tell us? This tells us what the forward change was over the next 10 days. So we see like, okay, on comparable days when all of the curve, the outrights, the spreads, Cushing, when everything was moving similar to this, these are the days. And so what happened to D-thread after is all of it. Look at this massive volatility. You see up 2.23, up 1.62, up 2.76, up 0.79, down 1.53, down 10.33. So this is something that might tell you, okay, like do we want to take a position that's long Vega? Like, are we long volatility D-thread over the next 10 days? Like, that might be something that you might want to take as a trader. All right. Now, let's finish. So now, additionally, I did the UT trading competition. I won't get into it too much, but we built a LP model to optimize the physical crude case. We placed first in P&L, and I had a fantastic time with my team. I loved it, and I was very grateful that Mays Business School recognized us. So obstacles and solutions. The biggest obstacle is, and probably will be for quite a while, is pre-processing of data. When you're working with large data sets, I mean, most of your time is going to be spent in pre-processing. The rest will be spent in like basic math or, basic or complex mathematics, but you start with pre-processing the data. So take, for example, this I think was a very smart move by myself. You have the weekly petroleum report, which is a um, weekly data, and you have daily pricing data, daily export data. All of this other stuff is daily. And so what you need to do is you need to change one of the frequencies to match the other in order to do machine learning or nearest neighbors or any high level analysis. So what I did was I took the weekly petroleum report, interpolated it linearly throughout, and then additionally I slid forward. So today's Thursday. What it would look like is you would slide forward the last Wednesday release into today, so it would appear to the model that this was a new day, so that all the momentum and other features that we engineer, all the other features that we engineer are linearly interpolated, and then we backfill at the end. So if we have data back to 2018, we backfill to the end in order to have no null values. So I thought that was a very good move by me, as well as a lot of feature engineering. So you know, building out rolling windows and derivatives and not just looking at absolute values, because although absolute values are important, they don't tell us the whole picture. And then another obstacle was the Kepler SDK. So I used the Kepler Python SDK to pull in the Kepler data, but because it was written in a different Python version rather than, or it utilized a different Python version than Streamlit, which was the library I used to build the site. I was forced to drop it. I tried to create an ETL cron job where basically it would run separately from the site. Um, but I ran into some issues, and I mean, as you can see in the image, I just chose to drop it and find my data from EIA instead. Then cybersecurity. So I determined that, or we determined as a group that it was important that we run everything locally, which was very difficult to make sure that everything would work locally, but I worked through it and now we can run all of these sites locally. Growth and future. I think it's very important that I work in some form of physical ops. I would really like to work in maybe freight scheduling or pipeline scheduling or something like that to really see how physical crude moves. I mean, I've been around a lot of physical crude moving, but I would like to get my own hands on it. So physical crude or whatever it be, nat gas, whatever. Trading strategies. So I was really blessed to have a great teacher in Will, who's one of my bosses, Will. He really hammered into me the understanding of futures and options, not just as simply like contract values, but also as collections of deltas. So like a good example is, say I purchase a call, a call option, a $55 call option. The price of the asset is $45 and the price of the asset raises to $50. So as it rises, I'll be accumulating deltas. And then there's a lot of things that I can do with that. Like I can change this, I can just take that money out. I can also use those deltas to purchase a put um, and cap my downside. So different things like that. And I think that was a big game changer, seeing spreads, because I had come in and I had used options before, just in my own personal account, but I had never really thought of real option strategies. So that was really great to learn, and I want to continue learning. And then for my sites, for some of my technical work, scaling. So going from the local SQLite file to like a larger SQL database. Additionally, real-time data would be very interesting to add if you want like like very quickly actionable data, or if you're like trying to be a rapid real-time trader, like a like day trader or something of that. Um, and then sentiment analysis. So I'm actually working on a project to take GDELT data, which accumulates all of this news data from all over the world and updates every 15 minutes. I'm working on building out a sentiment analysis on the GDELT project. But something like that, a sentiment analysis, I tried to make a sentiment analysis using the Alpha Vantage API, but it just was very noisy, wasn't very useful, so I decided to drop it. My next internship will be at DRW in natural gas. So I'm very excited to see how natural gas works, work in the fundamentals group, and learn as much as I can, sort of also on the technical side, and continue to build my skills up. I would like to thank my whole team at Southbow. I've had a great experience. I've loved working with all of you guys and learning a ton. I'd like to thank Brad, Will, James, and Derek. Um, it was a fantastic team, and I really couldn't have wished for anything more.